name is Greg Ferch, and on the 7th of this month, I have been here 28 years. Currently, I'm running for District 22 House seat. It's House Seat A. My first term before redistricting, I was in District 21 House Seat B, but things got all jumbled up with the new lines, so we're off to a different district now. I think the big reason is kind of an observation that things appear to be changing, and in a nutshell, maybe not, in my opinion, for the good. We seem to be losing a little bit of our footing when it comes to individual rights and personal responsibilities and that sort of thing. Even in red state Idaho, we seem to be believing that every minor inconvenience somehow needs a governmental solution, and I'm not really convinced that those things are a proper role of government. And for me specifically, it involves the healthcare world, and I have a niche in that regard. And I thought 2 years ago, the way I kind of say it is, I must have had COVID a couple of years ago, but instead of losing my sense of taste or smell, I lost my judgment. And it made me think that I needed to be involved in try and redirect some of the conversation regarding healthcare, wellness, and those sorts of things. And so that's really the reason why I jumped in 2 years ago, and is the reason why I'm giving it another go this time. Well, the biggest issue, I think, is the kind of the slippery slope that we seem to be on. And I sort of started alluding to that. We saw the path that California, Oregon, and then eventually Colorado went. And it's like one little thing, one little thing, one little thing, and little erosion, a little erosion. The next thing you know, where we've just, like a couple of these other states, just gone mad. And we have this horrible intrusion and usurpation of individual rights and responsibilities. And I think our biggest issue is making sure that we don't slide down the same path as many of those other states. My experience, I think, of course, the biggest thing is my 29 years of clinical private healthcare chiropractic experience. I've been really, really involved in that world. I've been on the Chiropractic Association board a couple of times. I was on what they call the peer review committee for the state under the Board of Occupational Licensing. I've been a member of the Chiropractic Association a couple of times. And so that is the core experience, I believe. The formal education, yes, I have a bachelor's degree in human biology, a whole bunch of chemistry, the doctorate in chiropractic, thousands of hours in continuing ed and home and self-study. I just love that. Outside of that clinical healthcare stuff, I have been a property owner. I've owned rentals. I've been involved in real estate, purchase, those kind of business environment things, dealing with, city regulations and, that kind of overreaching, overbearing governmental issue. So I'm experienced with that. I've been a homeowners association president of a 380 home homeowners association. That's always a perfectly thankless job. I've been in the military. I was an Army medic for 11 years. I've worked in trauma centers, Presidio Army Hospital in San Francisco, Burke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, driven ambulance. All that is kind of the other side of the healthcare world that I've been involved in. I enjoyed that. I loved it. I got to do things and, trips to Panama and, really seeing in that experience what real poverty is and the lack of stuff. And we flew in Blackhawks and we set up little medical clinics in these remote villages. And it is just really remarkable how appreciative these people are that don't have running water, the conveniences that we grow to expect, but the thankfulness. I mean, they literally fought over who got to help carry our equipment and set up our clinic. And it's a different perspective. Here it seems like we've gotten so complacent and we're building a society of people that walk around with their hand out and, I made bad choices and got a kind of a worthless college degree. So now someone else needs to repay my student loans. We're kind of, we don't know how good we have it here. And when you've done something like kind of a mission trip or a military trip like I went on to Panama, it gives you a different perspective on what real, poverty is and what it's really like to not have things. But yet those people were so appreciative of what we were doing. They're willing to trade and give like woven baskets and make me leather sandals with very, very limited materials. And it was a tremendous sacrifice for them to do that. But yet they were so thankful that we were there helping. And so those kinds of experiences through the Army or through working with, homeowners association, real estate, the clinical stuff for 29 years, gives me a background that I think is somewhat unique. And then finally, I've been very involved in party politics. I've been fortunate to have had a number of positions, district chairman. I've been a precinct committeeman for years. I was voted to be Ada County Republican chairman for a couple of years. So I've been involved and had experience in that circle too. So I think I'm pretty well rounded and have some experiences that give me a good background to continue my tenure in the legislature. It really is pretty much to stay out of people's lives. Again, I've talked about, and I believe in the Constitution and the fact that the federal government has a list of enumerated powers, and that's it. There was a contract. The states formed the federal government, and they formed the federal government with these conditions. And those conditions were enumerated in the Constitution. Sadly, it seems like we've drifted far afield of what the federal government is technically authorized to meddle with. For instance, there is no congressional authority to be involved in healthcare or education. And a few years ago, Rand Paul took some heat, but I love the idea that in order to propose federal legislation, you had to cite the constitutional authority for you to even be involved in the conversation of whatever it was you were proposing. And sadly, that idea didn't go anywhere. But ultimately, I think that the proper role of the federal government is mostly to stay out of our lives, protect our inalienable rights, and address only the enumerated powers granted to it by the Constitution. I'm going to kind of come back to a little bit of the healthcare stuff. Obviously, the last 2 years have taught us that science, healthcare, and all this kind of stuff is pretty important. And I believe that I fill a pretty unique niche in the Idaho legislature. Now, there's a lot of wonderful people that have areas of expertise. There's a lot of people that know a lot about agriculture, or they know a lot about water rights or transportation and things like that. But when it comes to healthcare, science, and a holistic, natural approach to healthcare. I believe that I largely have the market cornered in the expertise. There's a lot of people, wonderful conservative, diehard legislators that agree with, healthcare freedom and so forth. I maybe am in a bit better position to speak to the science and the details of how we get there. If we've got to have to have a conversation about natural immunity or something of that nature, I can explain why, the 29 proteins in the coronavirus and getting natural acquired immunity and building that based on the 28 protein profile is more effective than the one spike protein supposed immunity from the shot. I can deal with that. And I'm not certain that there are very many people there that can. And so while I don't profess to be an expert in everything, I kind of know my wheelhouse, and I'm pretty unique in that wheelhouse. And I think that that's part of the reason why I would hope that people would give me a second shot for another term.